Connie here.
Hello, I'm John.
And welcome to our channel. Basically, it's our channel now. It used to be my channel, but I'm a married woman, so it's our channel.
Our channel now.
Yes. Yay. Okay, well, we're making this special video series, and it's, Boo, do you want to?
Yes. We were just talking, and one day we just thought about, you know what would be a really great idea for some videos is doing a series on common misconceptions of being a Christian. And there's a lot of common arguments that people use to say, I don't want to become a Christian because ... like this and that. There's many reasons, and people will just kind of throw up their hands and say, this is why I'm not a Christian.
Yeah, we have one major sort of misconception that we wanted to do today. Only weak people need God.
Right.
So Christianity is for weak people.
Right.
I've heard that several times throughout my life already after I became a Christian. Just mainly objections from people, my friends, or in my family even, that didn't want to believe. And that's what they told me, and basically they were insulting me.
Yeah.
By calling me a weak person. And
yeah, there people say people use God as an emotional crutch.
Yes.
If you're really weak, if you've got a lot of emotional issues,
baggage.
Yeah, if you have a tendency to be weak and you need a higher power, then and only then does God come into the picture. Mm-hmm. And that's but me, I'm fine. I'm not weak like that. See, we could cater to the world's or to that objection that people say, only weak people need God. And a lot of the church does cater to that. I think today, the churches are about kind of solving the emotional hurts and the pains of their congregation, and kind of talking comfort words to their congregation. And there's nothing wrong about that. Yeah. But to just focus on that term weak, I think is not really doing justice to the real truth of the gospel. And I think what we're trying to do tonight is just shed a light on what this really is about. So let's kind of go even deeper into that question. So What is weak? Let's kind of talk about
what
that.
Encompasses weak.
Yeah.
See, it's a matter of semantics now. What are we trying to say when we're talking about weak? Mm-hmm. And that could mean so many different things. Weak meaning emotionally timid, weak meaning that you're broken, that you've had experiences throughout your life, childhood, whatever, that kind of shaped you, and you have emotional issues. But weak, I think, in terms of the spiritual sense and in terms of what we're talking about, encompasses not only that, but also sin in people.
Yes. We realize that the truth that we believe goes far beyond just emotional. Mm-hmm. This is at a spiritual level of the sort of the basic condition of mankind.
Yes.
And most people know that Christians adhere to this principle that we have sin and that we're sinful beings, that we're fallen beings. Nothing we say tonight is going to be like earth-shatteringly new, but we're just shedding a new light on it to kind of show that is it really just weak people, quote unquote weak people, that need God, or is it really in fact that we all need God?
We all need.
And so the real weakness that we want to talk about is something called bondage to sin. And it's going to sound fancy and theological, but I think, do you remember what we talked? Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, the weakness comes from us living in a fallen world, being in bondage to our own sin. Right. Sin doesn't exactly just mean, like, anybody can say, well, Connie, I'm a good person. I never stole from anyone. It's not like I murdered anyone. It goes beyond just those basic outward obvious things that would be considered sinful. Sin is also the unforgiveness in our hearts. It's just the pure wickedness of our hearts. Like, if you've ever cursed at somebody on the road and just wished that they would die, or something like that, just for a second. Or, unforgiveness, bitterness, just insecurity even, having a low self-worth.
Even looking at somebody with hateful thoughts.
Yes.
So Jesus comes along in the New Testament and talks about how the Jews were all so focused on the external rituals and good deeds, and he points kind of a finger at them, kind of saying, it's about the spirit behind and the religiosity that the Pharisees and the religious teachers were performing at the time. So this kind of leads into, there's so much to talk about, but the fact that we all have sin and we're all trying to cover that up with external good things,
right.
good deeds that make us feel better about ourselves, that we are actually good people.
Right.
And that's, I think, the big deception and the big lie that that the world follows today, is that we're basically covering up our weakness. We're covering up all that dirty, the dirty laundry.
Yeah, and also that we're just in denial.
Yeah, and we are in denial.
So which goes to our next point.
Yeah,
that
okay.
we want to make.
Let's talk about that.
The point that we have a couple points under the sort of misconception that only weak people need God. Christianity is for only weak people, and that's not true. We're saying that all people need God. It's just that most of us are in denial that we need God.
Yes.
So the first point is that those who reject God are actually in denial of their need for God. And John, do you want to?
Yeah, this is a verse in Romans, or verses in Romans chapter 1. It's kind of a long verse, but the main point of this passage is that we suppress the truth. We replace God with our own set of truths, our own interpretation, or our own created truth, which is actually a lie. So let's just read this verse, and we'll show the verse later, right?
Yeah,
okay.
we'll show it.
The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being, and birds and animals and reptiles. This talks about birds and animals and reptiles, but actually it goes even further than that in today's culture. I think we exchange God and our need for God with a lot of cover-up. And those cover-up things could be things like the pleasures of this world, or the ambitions that we go for in our life. We think that those are the main goals of our lives. So we suppress our need for God, and we replace that with other distractions.
Yeah, and the world is designed to kind of distract us from God. I mean, I just look around, just all the material things, our social media, people are constantly on their phones, totally just distracted. Candy Crush. I never played that, but I hear people are so just into that. And
so I think what has happened is that this sort of mentality has crept into our own religious thought and the churches of today, the quote-unquote churches, false churches. And I'll share right now that I once visited a church in LA, thinking that it was a gospel following, Jesus following church, and come to realize that they're quoting the Bible to support their own view that we are mini gods, that we are God, that we have the God within.
It was a New Age church that you had gone to.
Yeah, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I'll just put it out there that this is what's creeping up. That the world is replacing true Christianity, the truth, with total false deception. And what this reminded me of was, kind of when Jesus came and he was pointing out to the Pharisees that all of their religiosity and all of their external deeds, and he called them, they were it's like rubbish, but he was calling them.
He called them a brood of vipers.
Yeah, and whitewashed tombs. And that phrase always rings in my mind, because a whitewashed tomb is pretty on the outside, but on the inside,
there's
just,
decay,
it's
there's
decay.
rot.
It's not good, but
Right.
they cover it up to make it look good.
Okay. So,
So I think right now what we've tackled is this concept of weak and strong.
right.
And I don't think we fully finished that thought about bondage to sin, because even though we're in the midst of that cover up, like we're trying to look good on the outside and all that, we don't realize we're doing that.
Yeah.
We're like in bondage to
Yeah,
that.
we're in
Yeah.
bondage of that, and we're also in denial of that, and also pride, I think, creeps in.
Yeah. So can I read this verse here?
yeah.
Because this talks about that kind of, that we're sort of dead before we really come to a real encounter with God and understand our need for Him, that we're actually dead. The Bible uses the word dead, that we're dead. This is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1. For as for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. This is talking about the devil that's at work today in the world. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. But because of His great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. So the big statement here that we want to say, which might get a lot of controversy, is that not everyone is going to be saved.
Yeah, because not everyone is going to choose God.
Yes.
Sometimes people, have you ever met someone where you're talking to them and you're telling them the truth of something and they just won't believe it? They just refuse to believe it?
Yes. Because by our very nature, we don't want God. We're basically dead in our sin, meaning that we don't even realize that we need God until we're sort of reawakened or awakened
or reborn
to our need for Him. Yeah. So it's almost like the initial statement of only weak people need God.
It said everybody, all people need God. Even those who deem themselves strong. Like, I'm a strong person. I have all my crap together. I'm doing good. I'm happy. My life is going great. I don't need God. Even those people that say that need God, because Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It doesn't say for only the weak people have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. It's all, everybody.
Boo, why don't you read Isaiah 2 down here?
Yeah, and then Isaiah 53:6 says, we all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on Jesus the iniquity of us all.
And that kind of goes into the gospel message of the fact that Jesus, or God, in His holiness and in His love, instead of being just perfectly just and punishing us for our sin, in His love, He sends Jesus to be the penalty for us on our behalf. Because God, by His justice, has to punish sin. That's just by definition, and that's the kind of God, by definition, I think we would say we would agree to. A moral,
And
righteous, just
God.
perfectly just God must punish sin, because that's what's fair.
Yes.
But in His love, He shows mercy to some people. That's going to be controversial, but God, in His mercy, allows certain people to understand their need for God. It's like a sick person understanding his sickness and saying, okay, I need the doctor. So Jesus comes and offers that. And he said, I did not come for the healthy, but for the sick. Now, when people say, oh, I don't need God because I'm strong enough, only weak people need God, they're not quite seeing the real reality of their own need. I don't want this to come across like we're just like damning people or judging them, but this is the truth that we believe as believers in Jesus, is that we need Him in our state of sin that we often go back to sometimes, he told us that he came for the sick, not for the healthy,
Right.
those who recognize their need for him.
So yeah, we talked about weakness also being in bondage to sin, but there's also victory, because if you see Jesus, how basically he was with God from eternity. He is God, and he came as a human being. He humbled himself, came to this earth as a human being so that he could experience our sin, our hurts, and to really be able to say, I know, I understand, I understand what you're going through. And so by him dying, and not dying a normal death, I mean, it was a horrific death of torture, someone who totally didn't deserve that. The victory being that that he conquers sin, he conquered death. So when we choose God and we say, God, we thank you for saving me, and we acknowledge him for what he's done, paying the penalty of sin and conquering sin and death so that we can live, so that we can have an abundant life, then we no longer are quote unquote sinners. It's kind of shaky because most Christians...
I know where you're going with that.
Most Christians say, oh, we're sinners. Well,
yes.
No, if you've been saved by grace through
Right.
faith, then you're
Right.
not a sinner anymore. You're not in bondage to your sin.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we're gonna not sin ever again
Right.
and fall.
Right.
But
we're still in this world,
Yeah.
this fallen world.
Right. So
and,
we quickly, the Holy Spirit in us convicts us that, I'm doing something wrong here. I'm not, I'm sinning or whatever, and the Holy Spirit convicts us, and so we try again. But we're not going to be in bondage to that. So there is that victory.
Yes. So that's the ironic thing that I
Yeah.
kind of want to point out, because me and Connie have been experiencing that in our own personal life, is that when we do fall into those moments of emotional weakness or
Yes.
frustration, like, I'll get angry at her, or she'll just feel insecure or something, or hurt about a certain situation. And we bring that to God in prayer, and we find that in prayer, in the midst of that quote unquote weak state,
Yes.
is where we find our greatest strength.
Yes.
And this verse came to me because as we were just talking about this main premise of only weak people need God, I realized that weakness is not a bad thing.
Weakness.
Because it brings
man.
it draws us to God.
Totally.
And so the world wants to say, oh, weakness is bad.
Yes.
Only weak people need God, and I'm
Yes.
not weak, I'm strong.
Right.
But then the thing is that
There
I think that God gives
yes.
us these moments of weakness because he loves us so much.
Yes.
Just like a parent understands how much their kid needs their support and needs their love.
Exactly.
And if the kid is like, oh, you know what, I don't need you, mom and dad, I'm fine, I'll go out and live my own life.
Yeah, and how is that kid gonna survive? Let me
Right.
ask you. Maybe like 9 or 10 years old, and they say, I don't need you, mommy, daddy.
Right.
But that just shows the relationship between us and God, that we are his children, and that he wants us to rely upon him as a little child does. That's
Yeah.
the relationship.
Yeah, and then I do want
And
to
the
share.
funny thing is, people are so prideful that they don't want to ever say that they need God as if they were a child that needed their parent. They can't bring themselves to
Right.
that sort of humility.
It's all about, I'm going to do this myself.
And the ultimate example of somebody who is so humble and meek, M-E-E-K, meekness does not equal weakness, is Jesus. Jesus was the most humble, the most meek,
Yeah,
but
he
in
took
that
on-
weakness was the greatest strength that came out.
Yeah, well, he took on all the weaknesses of the world so that we could actually experience the strength that comes from that, because we've been now renewed and forgiven of the sin. So God sort of restored us.
Yeah, just like
That's a lot of theological talk.
It's so much.
There's so much
I
to
mean,
talk about. Can I share this verse?
Yeah.
Apostle Paul, one of the greatest missionaries, said that he's basically boasting in his weakness. And he
I like
says,
that verse.
he's quoting God, like, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. We can't experience God's power unless we are weak.
Yes.
We are weak, and we experience God's power through that. It says, therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong.
Ooh, Amen.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
it. We can end the video. All right, we're done. That's
Yeah.
it. But isn't that awesome?
It's so crazy how the world's
definition
definition
yeah.
is so opposite of what God deems
or
as
their conception
strength.
of yeah.
What am I trying to say?
Well, the world is saying that it's bad to be weak,
Right.
and we fall into that too. We want to be strong. We want to be self-sufficient, and because of that self-sufficiency and really that pride is then we forget God.
Yeah. Bottom line is that we all need God, and some of us just don't want to admit it. That's basically what it comes down to. And we hope that anyone out there that's listening to this video that may be considering coming to faith in Jesus Christ or, wants to be a believer, but you're kind of fighting internally, you're having an internal struggle, like, I don't want to start believing because I can do this on my own. Just really consider, and just for one moment, think that, just humble yourself for one moment and go, maybe I do need God. Maybe I can't do this by myself. Because in that weakness, that quote unquote weakness that you're just admitting to yourself, then you will find your greatest strength.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's
and that brings such personal victory.
it's so amazing
when you surrender and you say, Lord, I need you.
Yes.
And hey, we sang that song, huh?
Yeah, we did.
Check out a couple videos prior to this one.
Yeah, Lord, I Need You by Matt Maher. We
I love
sang
that song.
We did for Worship Wednesday. Yeah.
That song.
So anyways, this video is getting really long.
All right.
And there's just so many, it's hard to talk about spiritual things and try to put it into words and,
Hopefully we conveyed it in an understandable way without too much theological blah, blah, blah.
But thanks for listening, guys. And we will be continuing this series and tackling some other misconceptions, objections, or whatever to faith. And we'll just be kind of examining it and going deeper. And we hope that you'll enjoy it and hope that you've been blessed by it. And and catch us on Wednesday for another Worship Wednesday as well. Thanks.
All right.
God bless you guys.
God bless you.
Bye.